going to do so well. And by the way, before we forget, Chris, so important tomorrow, North Carolina, you have to go out and vote. You have to vote.
Once upon a time, a northerner blustering and banging his way into the Deep South seeking votes would have been met at the state line by a hearty band of citizens who would rather fight than even consider that possibility. But the old mores about how and why the Deep South votes the way it does have been completely shattered forever by Donald Trump, who came in and conquered North Carolina this week. Granted, it wasn't a complete smothering of opponents, but winning the primary there by about 4 points is still a good ribbing, and will force Ted Cruz and others to bone up on how to defeat him down the road, with or without their chosen sauce of rhetoric. Smothering, bones, ribbing, sauce. My imagination, or does something smell like brisket in here right now? Our guest is a sociologist, essayist, author of 20 books, all dealing with the contemporary South. And his latest is Perfect Sauce for the Political Goose, or the Pig, as preference may have it. Barbecue, a Savor the South Cookbook. Welcome John Shelton Reed to the Hard Line. John, thanks so much for joining us. And I caught a line that you did recently in a New York Times op-ed where you said, quote, Herbert O'Keefe, the editor of the Raleigh Times in the 1950s, once said, no man has ever been elected governor of North Carolina without eating more barbecue than was good for him. Is that still the case?
Well, less the case than it used to be, but still barbecue's a serious subject around here, or semi-serious, at least it's something people enjoy fighting about.
Why is it still so serious, and how does it all still work into the politics of North Carolina?
Well, this goes back a long way. In that New York Times piece, I started out by talking about the royal governor in 1766 who threw on a barbecue to try to placate some of the citizens that were upset about the Stamp Act. It didn't work. They poured out the beer and threw the barbecued ox in the river. So, incidentally, this was 7 years before the Boston Tea Party, but you don't read about that in the textbooks. One of many grievances we have here. Anyway, since then it's played a significant part in politics. Everybody running for office used to throw political barbecues and try to win the voters' affection that way. You still have big political barbecues in North Carolina. It's just not always needed. I don't think Mr. Trump threw any barbecues, and he did win, as you say.
Is that just it? It sort of has changed because if you look at it, there's still a huge technology group in North Carolina, the technology circuit, if you will, that's there, very young. There's the Bible Belt that's there. There's still the people that have lived there for many years and the people who have moved there in maybe the last decade or so. So fair to say that North Carolina is almost, it's such an amazing melting pot of what America really is right now. It becomes a little microcosm of current politics.
Well, I think you're probably right. We've got all sorts of communities. I mean, we've got university towns, and we've got military bases, and we've got, as you say, high-tech centers, the Research Triangle Park, retirement centers. We've got rural agricultural counties still that are losing population. We've got old industrial counties with furniture factories and textile mills that are in trouble. So basically whatever you want, you can find in North Carolina. And we've always been a divided state. I mean, it's not just divisions about barbecue. The politics of this state, we've always, in recent past anyway, we've been a purple state. I mean, the Democrats, Republicans, neither one can count on North Carolina. We sent Jesse Helms to the Senate for a very long time. I don't think he ever got more than 55% of the vote, though. And at the same time, well, at one time we had him and Terry Sanford representing us, liberal Democrat, conservative Republican.
Hey, John, what is it about Donald Trump, then, that spoke to the people of North Carolina this time around?
Yeah, I wish I knew. I've been looking at the results, and all of the counties in the state went either for Trump or Cruz. And it's easier to talk about the ones that went for Cruz than the ones that went for Trump because there are fewer of them. But basically, there's a band of counties stretches across the middle of the state that went for Cruz. And it does include most of the big cities in the state. On the other hand, Charlotte, the biggest city, went for Trump. And in that band of counties, there are rural counties, there are metropolitan counties, there are counties in the mountains that have a lot of incomers, retirees, and second home owners. I'm having trouble seeing a pattern there. It's easy to talk about the Sanders Clinton vote. I mean, that's pretty clear what happened there, and I'll talk about that if you'd like me to. But
I only got about 30
I'm kinda
seconds left, and I just want to really get this in very quickly. 30 seconds. Is it not fair to say that North Carolina is that microcosm of learning how to speak the new Southern language then?
Yes, I think so. You know, we've always been a step or two ahead of most of the southern states in what's happening here. I mean, we industrialized early. We got two-party politics relatively early. So, yeah, it's not a bad place to start. Of course, I'm biased.
Of course, you're a little biased. That figures it. Real quick, I got to ask, dry rub or sauce? Which one do you prefer?
Sauce in North Carolina.
See,
no
people got to understand that. The dry rub is someplace else, and you've got to have that. You got to get your fingers dirty when it comes down to being in North Carolina. Do yourself a favor, folks. Take care of all this eating, if you will. Barbecue, a Savor the South Cookbook, teaches you a little bit about the South as well. John Shelton Reed, thanks so much for joining us. The Hardline continues.